You wash yourself by pouring water over your head. Bathing is rare. The communal baths, usually shared by men and women, are more about socializing than hygiene. For most people, the closest they get to bathing is a sponge on a stick. Breakfast is simple fruit from the market, olives, cheese, figs, maybe some honey. Wine is often mixed with breakfast since, hey, why not? Life's tough. And if you have kids, they eat what you eat, probably on the floor while you eat. They'll join you at the table when they can hold a full conversation without beating the neighbors to death. Education is mostly reserved for boys. Girls learn household skills, which means they're more likely to die knowing their way around a kitchen knife than a bloody battlefield. Boys go to school at age 7, where they sit on stones and listen to a teacher drone on about stuff they won't really care about until they re-ancient themselves. Most will never be scholars, so they focus on learning a trade, whether that's pottery, metalwork, farming, or carpentry. By age 20, they've finished their formal education, but may continue to apprentice under a master for years. Slavery is part of the economy and society, and those who can afford it have slaves doing menial tasks. Slaves are usually foreigners captured in war or bought from traders, and their treatment varies from master to master. Some might fare better than some free citizens, while others face brutal punishments for mistakes. You're one of the lucky ones, though, and your master isn't a complete monster, which makes life still pretty awful. After breakfast, you get to work. For many, it's physical labor as a farmer, fisherman, or laborer. A few artisans and shopkeepers work in the city. The hours are long, the pay is low, and if you're self-employed, you're constantly worried about theft. The legal system is rudimentary, and most disputes are settled out of court. Merchants and farmers sometimes use accounting practices that would make a modern accountant cry. And lawsuits, while possible, are expensive and time-consuming. You work all day, but how hard you work depends on who you are. A merchant in Athens might have more leisure time than a peasant on a farm. The wealthy elite, mainly landowners and merchants, live lives of relative luxury compared to most. They wear fine clothes, eat delicious food, and send their kids to fancy schools. Their houses are bigger, their sandals are fancier, and they probably have slaves to do their bidding. But even the rich aren't exactly rolling in dough. Being a landowner carries responsibilities. You're expected to contribute to public works projects and serve in the military when called upon. And everyone pays taxes, even slaves. When you're done working, you head home, exhausted, but not necessarily empty-handed. Hopefully, if you're a farmer, you had a good harvest. If you're a laborer, you might have saved enough money to buy a new tunic. If you're a merchant, you might have made a decent profit from your latest deal. Whatever you have, bring it to the agora, the central marketplace where goods are bought and sold. Here you exchange your goods for necessities or luxuries, depending on your wealth. There's everything from food and tools to furniture and fine art. Once you've got what you need, you might stop for a drink at the local tavern. Taverns are common throughout Greece and serve as social hubs. You meet friends, discuss politics, and debate the merits of the latest Athenian playwright. Sometimes there's dancing, music, and in some establishments a prostitute or two. As evening approaches, the city comes alive. Street vendors hawk their wares. The sound of hammering mingles with the buzz of conversation, and the air fills with the aromas of cooking. You might attend a religious festival with its processions, sacrifices, and prayers. Or maybe you're more in the mood for the theater. The Greeks loved their tragedies and comedies performed in open-air theaters with seating carved into the hillside. Laughter and gasps echo through the valleys as the actors weave their tales of love, loss, revenge, and heroism. After the performance, you might grab some street food, maybe a slice of bread dipped in olive oil or a sweet date cake, and stroll along the waterfront. Fishing boats bobbing in the harbor, the salty tang of the sea mingling with the scent of pine from the Acropolis Hill. The stars start to appear in the night sky, a blanket of darkness studded with diamonds. You look up and wonder about the stories the ancients told about those distant lights. Love them or hate them, you can't deny their beauty. The temple is your place for worship. The Greeks believed in a pantheon of gods who lived on Mount Olympus. Zeus, king of the gods, Poseidon, god of the sea, Hades, ruler of the underworld, Hera, goddess of marriage; Athena, goddess of wisdom; Apollo, god of music and light. These deities shaped human lives, deciding when to shower blessings or hurl curses. Religion permeated daily life. Altars were built into homes. Sacrifices were made to propitiate the gods before important endeavors. And festivals like the Panathenea in Athens honored the patron deity of the city. Ritual purity was important. Bathing before sacrifice was customary, and special vessels were used to collect sacrificial blood. Priests interpreted the will of the gods through various means, including examining animal entrails. The Oracle of Delphi, considered the holiest site in Greece, was famous for its prophetic pronouncements. The Greeks believed the gods spoke through oracles like the Pythia, who delivered cryptic messages that priests and worshippers alike spent a lot of time interpreting. Whether you were a humble farmer or a powerful statesman, the gods were watching. Your actions, decisions, and even your thoughts could be scrutinized by divine beings whose whims could change your fortune in an instant. So you prayed, you sacrificed, and you hoped that the gods were in a good mood. Life expectancy is around 35 years, but infant mortality is high. Many children die from exposure, disease, or simply being born too early. Diseases like malaria, typhoid, and tuberculosis are widespread, claiming victims of all ages. Injuries from building collapses, animal attacks, and warfare also take their toll. Death is a constant companion, whether it comes in the form of a sudden illness, an old injury flaring up, or the aftermath of a battle. Even the mighty warriors and rulers are not immune. The threat of death looms over every aspect of life, from the dangers of the sea to the unpredictability of the elements. People prepare for death by making offerings to the dead and building elaborate tombs for the wealthy. They practice divination to try and predict when death might arrive. And they engage in rituals to ensure the safe passage of the soul into the afterlife. Death is not seen as an end, but a transition, and the living strive to honor and guide the dead on their journey. You wake up again and realize it's just another day in ancient Greece. The sun streams in through the shutters, bringing with it the promise of another scorching day. The thought crosses your mind, wouldn't it be nice to have air conditioning? But then you push it away. This is your life, the life of millions who lived here between 800 BC and 146 BC. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it was real as the cracked clay pots on your shelf or the calluses on your hands. What did they say about history anyway? It's not just about the victors, but all those who lived, loved, and died trying to make sense of their time. That's all for tonight, friends. If you found this glimpse into the past enjoyable, consider subscribing and liking the video. Drop a comment about what surprised you most about life in ancient Greece. And if you're curious about other historical periods, check out the series. Until next time, keep asking questions and stay curious. The author is a liar. We looked up what people in ancient Rome ate for breakfast, and he's way off the mark. In fact, we've got some recipes from the era that are quite delicious. So let's cook up a Roman breakfast feast. All right, author, you win. Bathing is not exactly a morning ritual. Oh, and by the way, we don't call it breakfast. We call it prandarm, so let's talk about it. This is the best part of your day. Yeah, I hate to break it to you, but this is the best part of your day. But let's be real, you're not wealthy. You're really lucky if your bread is uncrawling with yesterday's flies and doesn't crack a molar. Tell us what we got wrong. Tell us what we got right. Tell us what you'd like us to do next. Just remember, it's not personal. It's not you. It's me. Well, it could be you. Either way, it's not personal. Okay. Goodbye. So no coffee, no eggs, no fruit bowl. No honey unless you know a beekeeper and a good bribe. After this, it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get stale. It's gonna get sweaty. We think they ate better when they were celebrating or had something nice to eat. The reason we know that is because we found these recipes on these little pieces of wood. They're called baking sticks. See, instead of paper and pencils in school, we use wax tablets. So after we write on them, we erase the wax and we reuse the tablets over and over again. So these recipes, they're really old, but they're really helpful. Like this one for apple cakes. The recipe says to take flour, vinegar, honey, chopped apples, chopped nuts, sprinkle some salt on top and bake it all in the ashes of last night's fire, And this recipe for pancakes, it's a little longer. It says to mix flour, vinegar, wine, salt, pepper, chopped figs, chopped dates, and olive oil. And then you roll it out and you fry it in olive oil. This is what breakfast would taste like if your grandma was Greek, your grandpa was Romang, and they both lived in the same village. Which I'm assuming happened. And it's gonna stick to places no tunic should. In fact, it pretty much never happens. If it does, it's at the end of the day. But we don't need a bath every day. We've got stinky colleagues, dirty roads, and wool tunics. Then rub some olive oil on your skin, then scrape it off with a curved metal blade called a strigil. Now think of it as a spa day without the spa, the day or any actual benefit. It's just kind of painful. And also kind of unsanitary, but hey, it's the thought that counts, right? You should probably wash your hair too. But there's not really a point to it unless you want to make sure the parasites do and lay eggs in your scalp. Yeah, those last two are your problem, not ours. Okay, that's how you say it, Maza. Think of it as ground barley mixed with water, shaped into cakes and baked on stones or in the ashes of last night's fire. Basically, it's an ancient granola bar. Without the sweetness, the texture, or the joy? Sometimes we dunk it in watered-down wine because water isn't exactly safe to drink. There's no filtration system, no boiling, no clay Brita pitcher. In fact, lead pipes carry water from reservoirs into the city. But most people don't have access to them. So we drink diluted wine. Not for fun, but for survival. Kids probably start drinking wine before they can walk. It's a rough world. The streets are our hallways, our news feeds, and our trash dump. So we don't actually have a hallway, which means we don't have a privacy hallway. We sleep together, we eat together, and we argue over who tracked mud in. So nobody has their own room. You do share a bathroom with your whole family. Well, it's more like a bathroom and a kitchen combined in a single room where everybody eats, sleeps, and hangs out. And the food we eat is not exactly gourmet, but we're here to change that today. Okay, first things first, you gotta splash some water on your face. So the main course of our Roman breakfast, that's easy. It's maza. You could ask for more if you're wealthy. Maybe you get a fig, some olives, or goat cheese. Okay, we don't think Romans ate like this all the time. Well, that's our show. Leave us some more comments below. A chiton, a himation, sandals, an oil lamp, a sprig of parsley, those were your props. This was your theater. This was your world. Ancient Greece, 800 BCE to 146 BCE for the last decade. We've explored the lives of regular people from all across history. But today, let's explore what their days were really like. In ancient Greece, from dawn till dusk, let's do ancient Greece. And if you're a woman, keeping your eyes down and your mouth shut. If you enjoyed this video and you want more just like it, hit that subscribe button and join the family. Thanks for watching. Eventually you need to get out of the crowds. You follow the sound of hammers to a small workshop with a cool breeze, shade, and recycled air. You take a deep breath, you close your eyes, and you think, there is nowhere else I would rather be. Then you open your eyes and realize this is just another fig drying shack. There are no air conditioners, but there are lots of olives, so you start to sort, crush, press, ferment, dry, and you wonder why all these guys write poetry about wine. Olive oil is way more fun. You finish your shift and you head home, maybe to help prepare dinner. Dinner in ancient Greece, it sucks. The food is bad, the company is worse. Family dinners are loud, messy, and competitive. Everyone talks at once to be heard. And if you're a woman, you serve and stay silent. If you're a man, you eat first. You make eye contact with your father. You hold his gaze until he acknowledges you. Only then can you touch your food. The meal tastes like vinegar, dirt, and regret. You dream of a banquet, plump chickens, fattened geese, bowls of figs. You have a fig and call it a feast. After you eat, you might groom your animals, mend your fishing nets, or carve a new dipper handle. Life is hard in ancient Greece. Work is endless, the hours are long, your tunic is itchy. Your sandals are hurting. Your olives are bitter. But then you look up, the sky is brilliant blue. The mountain is solid gold. The figs are sweet. The wine is warm. The light is good. The stars are out. And you feel proud to be alive in the greatest city on earth. And now we've made it to ancient Greece. If you're lucky, it's to the sound of birds and waves because you live by the sea. You chew, nod, and get back to work. And if you're a woman, you eat separately often after the men. So not only is the food bad, but you also get to wait your turn to be disappointed. It's ironic. These are the same people who gave us symposiums, banquets, and poetry about wine, but breakfast? Not even worth a haiku. It's utilitarian, dry, often literally burnt. And yet, you power through it because it's the only thing between you and a long day of sun, labor, and arguing philosophers. Now that you've chewed through your stale barley brick and splash of wine water, it's time to freshen up. Or try to. Hygiene in ancient Greece isn't about cleanliness, it's about ritual and olive oil. Soap doesn't exist yet. If you bathe, it's probably cold water poured over you in a courtyard or at the public fountain, unless you live near a bathhouse, which most people don't. There's no shampoo, no minty body wash, no sponge unless you mugged a diver. So instead you rub olive oil into your skin, not to moisturize, but to collect dirt and then scrape it off. Imagine slathering yourself in salad dressing, then shaving it off. That's your skincare routine. And it's public, naked, loud, hygiene is social, privacy is not. Your teeth? You might rub your gums with charcoal or rinse with vinegar if you're fancy, but mostly you chew on a twig and hope the gods show mercy. There are no toothbrushes, no mouthwash, just hope, body odor, absolutely everywhere. Deodorant doesn't exist, but perfumes do, if you can afford them. Maybe you dab some rose oil behind your ears before walking 5 miles through goat dust and market stew. Laundry? Rare. Clothes are beaten against rocks. If you're poor, your tunic probably hasn't seen water since last festival season. So hygiene isn't about looking good, it's about appearing slightly less revolting than yesterday. Once you've scraped off enough grime, it's time to get dressed. And your wardrobe is. Yeah, there are no shoes. You go barefoot. Unless you're a soldier, sandal style depends on your wealth. Mine are leather thongs or strips of hide. Richer folk wear something closer to high heels or maybe boots. But either way, no arch support. No socks, no change of clothes, sometimes no shirt. Men typically wear nothing but a loincloth. Women usually sport a dress and a shawl. Occasionally you see a queen in fine linen. Most people stick to wool tunics, rough and itchy, rarely washed, but better than yesterday. Unfortunately, there are no belts, so everyone wears an apron. Not cute, no jewelry though. Rich folk tattoo themselves with henna, others pin flowers to their hair. But mostly you just put your oil-slicked hair in a bun and get on with it. If you're a woman, you carry a basket of yarn, loom, knives, perfume, and your baby. And then you head out, down the crowded street, past the vendor selling fish, scales, and dreams. You dodge piles of garbage, stray dogs, and babies being swapped for other babies. And if you're a woman, you dodge unwanted hands, too. Men can proposition you anywhere, anytime. A polite refusal is expected, but sometimes you just want to scream, "I'm covered head to toe in wool and fish guts, but you still want me?" You reach the agora. This is where all roads lead. You come here to trade gossip and olives, to sell figs and pray to Zeus, to argue politics and find a husband, to watch an execution and gamble away your life savings. You come here to be part of the greatest city on earth. If not, it's to the sounds of goats under your window, an old man hawking fish guts down below, and someone else's argument. Arguments are common in ancient Greece. If you're rich, you may sleep in an atrium surrounded by family members. Otherwise, you and yours share a small room with a dirt floor. Your house is hot, dark, smelly, drafty. The walls are closing in. So you get up, you wash up, you leave. Okay, first things first, you wake up. Don't expect to sit and relax. There are no chairs, no forks, meals are fast. You spend your morning here, bartering, gossiping, dodging mobs of angry citizens and tyrants. So that was a little peek into the everyday life of an average person in ancient Greece. But what work means depends entirely on who you are and what body you were born into. For some, it's more wine and olives, perhaps with bread. Others enjoy fish or seafood if they live near the coast. Some might eat fruit, nuts, legumes, or cheese. If you want to help keep this content free for everyone forever, you can join our community on a crowdfunding platform. But meat is a luxury reserved for special occasions or the wealthy. Dinner varies depending on the season. Summer meals feature lighter fare, while in winter, heartier stews and roasts are more common. Meals often include bread, cheese, vegetables, fruit, olives, wine, and sometimes meat or fish. Slavery is baked into everyday life here, and your household slaves serve you these meals, tend to your property, and handle other tasks to keep your household running smoothly. Speaking of running smoothly, we've got a quick favor to ask. Life in ancient Greece was messy, complicated, and loud, just like today. But hopefully this episode helps show that ancient Greece wasn't just a bunch of philosophers arguing in robes while soldiers in shiny armor went off to war. The vast majority of people were working to survive, just like today. And like today, those who held power worked hard to keep it. To help keep this series running so we can keep bringing you new episodes every week, consider joining our community on a crowdfunding platform. As a token of our love and appreciation, we've got some cool treats to share like blooper reels and exclusive podcasts. Plus, your support helps us keep producing new episodes and introduce even more historical tales to even more eyeballs. Our deepest thanks to all of our supporters for helping to make all of this possible. If you're a man, congratulations, you've been granted full citizenship. For men, this might involve visiting a bathhouse or gymnasium to socialize, exercise, or attend sporting events like wrestling matches. Theaters are popular too, featuring tragedies, comedies, and satyr plays. Women's entertainment options are more limited, though some participate in festivals, religious celebrations, or competitions like singing or dancing. The evening winds down with dinner. Perhaps you dream of olives, goat hoof ointment, or maybe freedom, depending on what body you woke up in. One thing's for sure, your day is over. Unless you're a slave, in which case you roll up your sleeping mat and prepare to start again at dawn, life in ancient Greece was far from perfect. Slavery was brutal, democracy limited, and life hard for many. Yet this era laid the foundation for Western civilization, influencing art, architecture, literature, philosophy, and government. Exploring ancient Greece offers a window into our shared history and inspires awe at the foundations upon which we stand. This means you're expected to take part in the political life of the city, and by take part, we mean argue, loudly, in public, preferably with elaborate hand gestures and moral superiority. Politics isn't some elite profession, it's a civic duty. You might spend hours at the agora, the open-air marketplace, not buying things, but debating issues, accusing neighbors of corruption, and shouting about taxes while chewing olives. There's no social media, so all drama happens in person. Democracy here is messy, loud, and deeply flawed women slaves, and non-citizens can't vote, and random dudes are chosen for office by lottery, not qualifications. It is less government of the people and more game of dice with your neighbor's future. But most men aren't philosophers or orators. Most are laborers, farmers, fishermen, or craftsmen. You rise with the sun, work until your fingers bleed, and hope today's catch or crop gets you enough to trade for that goat hoof ointment you've been needing. If you're in the military, and almost every citizen man is, at some point you spend part of the year training or fighting. Every male between 18 and 60 is eligible. Being a hoplite is less about glory and more about sore feet. Heavy armor and screaming in phalanx formation while hoping you Dante trip on a rock and become the reason your city loses a war. Now, if you're a woman, your day is ... different. First, forget politics. You're not voting, debating, or holding office. Most women stay indoors, managing the household, grinding grain, weaving cloth, raising children, and praying no one steals the olive oil. You rarely leave the house unless it's for a religious festival, and even then you're expected to be veiled, modest, and invisible. You don't get an education unless your family is unusually progressive or wealthy. You don't inherit land. You don't pick your husband. You marry young, sometimes 14 or 15, to a man twice your age. And your job is to bear legitimate sons and manage slaves? Romantic, right? Last time we talked about how ancient Greece wasn't a country but a bunch of independent city-states. Some were rivals, some were allies, but they all had a lot in common. and today we'll explore how the average person lived in ancient Greece, assuming, of course, that you were a male citizen. If you weren't, well, your day would be very different, though maybe not in the way you think. Ready? Let's dive in. Waking up early is universal, though what counts as early depends on whether you're a slave or free. People began their days before sunrise, when work started. As a slave, your master may rouse you at dawn and your work never ends. Slaves did everything from housework to metalworking to serving as human tools and mines. Your existence revolves around satisfying your owner's needs, and you have no rights or autonomy. For a free person, an older family member or household slave may wake you with a kick or pinch. Sleep schedules vary depending on the season. In summer, people sleep late and nap during the hottest hours, while in winter, the days are shorter and people go to bed earlier. You might wake up next to a sibling, parent, or spouse, and your day will depend on your gender. Women typically handle domestic duties like preparing food, caring for kids, cleaning, spinning, weaving, and making clothes. Men Welcome to Greece, the land of philosophers, the Parthenon, and the Olympics. Also slavery, sexism, and really bad medicine. It's a golden age, but not for everyone. They train physically, inherit land, and shout back at men. But elsewhere in Greece, the ideal woman is quiet, obedient, and rarely seen. Your job is to maintain household order, honor, and olive production. There is no germ theory. Everything from the weather to the stars influences your health. A fever might be a sign of an imbalance of humors, so your treatment is to induce vomiting or diarrhea to restore balance. But if the city decides you're a threat to public unity, they write your name on a broken bit of pottery. The only sure thing is that life is dangerous and unpredictable. Your chances of dying young are high, but if you make it to 50, you're considered a legend. The ancient Greeks struggled with many of the same things we do today: politics, healthcare, censorship. We can learn from their mistakes, their art, and their successes. They pioneered democracy and the Olympic Games, which today represent more than 2,000 years of culture, history, and tradition. Ostrakhan, vote on it, And if enough people agree, you're banished for 10 years. No trial, no appeal, just pack up and go. If you survive 10 years in exile, you can come home. But until then, you're out of luck. Treatments come from neighbors and family elders, not trained physicians. Antidotes include honey or wine for wounds, but surgery is a last resort, and it's done without anesthesia. If you break a bone, you might get a splint. To stop an infection, they cauterize the wound with red-hot iron. What about mental illness? The dominant theory is that melancholic people are full of black bile, so the cure is to remove the spleen. Medicine was a gamble, and most treatments were ineffective and some were downright harmful. Most people died in their 30s from an infection or childbirth. Life was just plain dangerous. The only thing that could end your life quicker than a disease was war. That's it. Now, Athenian women can attend theater performances with their chaperones, unlike today. Entertainment and politics are intertwined, especially in the theater. The whole city shuts down for festivals like the Dionysia, where citizens gather in a giant open-air amphitheater and watch tragedies, comedies, and satyr plays. The crowd is rowdy. They boo, cheer, and sometimes throw stuff. Picture Shakespeare performed by your drunk uncle in a goat costume. That's Greek drama. Actors wear giant masks, shout to the back row, and perform stories of gods, murder, betrayal, and the occasional talking chorus of birds. Everyone goes to the theater, rich, poor, citizens, slaves. It's one of the few things that unite people in this fractured society. Also, they love complaining about taxes, but they can't leave the house without a male guardian, father, husband, or son. Marrying young is expected. Men take one wife, but many lovers. Women can be beautiful objects for men to admire and own, but they cannot own property or have bank accounts. Athenian law gives men the right to beat their wives. The only thing more disgraceful than an adult male who doesn't fight is a woman who doesn't cry. Spartans are known for their warrior ethos, but how would you fare in their army? Well, first you'd have to be a male citizen. Slaves and foreigners aren't allowed. At age 18, you take your place alongside other men in the agoge, a kind of military academy. Until you're 30, you live with your comrades, drill, march, and fight. Your body is inspected daily for fitness. Weaklings need not apply. Marriage is encouraged, but family life is secondary to your duty to Sparta. After 10 years, you return home, but you stay in the reserves until 60. Women are expected to be physically fit, but their duty is to bear children, preferably boys. Girls are educated alongside boys until age 10. After that, they learn domestic skills and childcare. Spartan women are expected to be witty and intelligent, but they don't participate in politics. Let's start with the good news. There are exceptions. Spartan women have more freedom. Now, what about slavery? Unfortunately, it's not just a footnote in this society. Slavery is everywhere. In Greece, it's not even called slavery. These people are called slaves because they are possessed, owned, and treated like property. Enslaved people run the fields, households, quarries, and silver mines. They serve as tutors, cooks, police, and sometimes even bankers. They have no rights, no property, and no family autonomy. They're prisoners of war, debtors, or people born into bondage. In the silver mines of Lavrion, enslaved people toil in unimaginable conditions. If you're a slave in a silver mine, your life expectancy is measured in months. Underground, airless, toxic, these are some of the worst working conditions in history. And no, there's no escape. If you run, you're hunted. If you're caught, you're branded or killed. Even Socrates, the guy preaching virtue, owned a slave. The ancient Greeks had a selective morality. They believed everyone should control their passions, except when it came to owning another human being. Let's talk about medicine. Any doctor watching this show will cringe at these practices. Now let's look at something positive: entertainment. Finally, ostracism. Yes, this is the birthplace of democracy. So does Greece sound like a great place to live? Yeah, maybe for a privileged male citizen. For everyone else, it's a mixed bag. Ancient Greece was a civilization that invented democracy, but also apparently inventing sarcasm, irony, new words for old things, and most importantly, kick you out of town. You heard that right. This is one of the few civilizations where leaving was an option and sometimes even encouraged. There were three: being too loud, being too rich, or being too persuasive. Being too loud could happen at any moment. The ancient Greeks loved their festivals, parties, and celebrations. It was normal to get drunk and then sing, dance, and make merry until the next day. Athens alone had a population of 800,000 people, and there was no public health system, so diseases spread quickly and easily. Smallpox, anthrax, tuberculosis, plague, polio, and the flu were common occurrences. And since the fields were full of animal feces, you'd probably step in it. Then it would get in an open wound from stepping on a rusty nail or something. And then you'd die. But if your voice was too loud, annoying, or just not in tune with the god Apollo, you could be banished. The ancient Greeks took their religion very seriously. Every city-state had its own patron deity. Exercise was extremely important to the ancient Greeks, and it was expected that you would spend a lot of time pumping iron. In fact, the ancient Greeks were so obsessed with exercise that they invented the world's first gym. But it was also brilliant and beautiful and frustrating and fun, and somehow you ended up in the middle of it all. They believed that the human body was beautiful, and they spent a lot of time and effort trying to make it look its best. So you will definitely be sweating. And every adult male citizen had to participate in religious festivals or risk angering the gods. Housing in ancient Greece varied depending on your wealth, but most people lived in small, cramped rooms with dirt floors and no running water. The wealthy might have had a courtyard, a fountain, or even a slave or two, but everyone slept on a mat made of reeds or straw. And if you're wondering why no one used sheets, it's because they didn't invent underwear either. Everyone went commando. Animal sacrifice was common, and the more valuable the animal, the better. So if you have a goat, you're pretty much screwed. Being too rich wasn't ideal either. You see, ancient Greece had major issues with wealth inequality. And if you were super rich while everyone else was dirt poor, you were a walking social injustice. As for being too persuasive, well, the Greeks were big fans of rhetoric, which was basically a competition of who could talk the best game, but if you were so good at arguing that you upset the balance of power in the city-state, you could find yourself exiled. But first, let me explain how you get kicked out of town. So now that you've been kicked out of town, let's talk about what happens next. First, you need to scrape oil off your body because everyone's covered in it. Oil was used for cooking, lighting, waterproofing, and as a general lubricant for everything. So it was basically in everything and on everyone. Second, you might want to debate whether shoes are morally okay. See, ancient Greek men wore sandals, but they didn't wear socks. This was seen as the height of fashion, and anyone who wore both socks and sandals was considered a barbarian. This might have been because the ancient Greeks associated footwear with the working class. Because of this, the word for sandals was aisa, which literally meant slave shoe. The elite wouldn't wear shoes because they didn't want to be seen as low class, and the poor couldn't afford them because they were expensive. So if you're wearing socks and sandals, you're insulting the working class by implying they're dirty. And if you're not wearing shoes, you're insulting the rich by implying they're cheap.